Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We have bellied up to the bar here on this last Wednesday. You know what, Facebook? Me and Facebook are enemies from now on. We have bellied up to the bar here on this last Wednesday here in the month of July, my birth month. For those who didn't know it, I turned 30 again this year, and I like it that way, and I'm going to continue to just turn 30 every year, just with years and years of experience after that. But why not, bring a blast from the Marine Corps past, Marine that might have served with Justy. I don't know who the hell he served with, but we're going to figure it out here. But joining us all the way. And listen, if you know anything about the Marine Corps, folks, this is going to make super sense in a moment. There are two states that if you ask them while you're in the Marine Corps what the greatest two places on the face of the earth, one will tell you it is Maryland, and everybody from Maryland will tell you that. Just ask them. And the other one that'll tell you the most amazing place in the world is always going to be Texas. So why not have somebody joining us, another Marine from Texas? We're going to be talking about what leadership after the military service is like, and I'm going to butcher his last name just like it happened for all the time he was in the Marine Corps. So joining us all the way from Texas, it is Mr. Clifford Sosamon. How bad did I butcher it?
No, man, that was pretty much on point.
Pretty much. Listen,
it's been a lot worse.
So how many times you get like, so Simon, what are you doing? So Simon,
yeah.
And I can see the first sergeant in my head right now yelling, "Hey, somebody go get me So Simon. Go get him now."
I need to ask him a question.
I need to ask him something right now. Oh, and Miss Orchid's already joining us. Hello, my dear. I imagine the world of Amtrak sucks right now with all this rain that we got in the Northeast. But real quick, we're going to be talking about what leadership after the military service is like. So let's go ahead and get some house cleaning done real quick, folks. As always, over my right shoulder is the big board for Sticker and a Cause. If you've got something you believe in, something that you're supporting, you want other people to know about, reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, X, you name it. We do it there. Our website is theabovethebarpodcast.com. Our email is theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Reach out to us. Let us know what you got going on, what you got happening. We'll be happy to read all about it. Put your sticker up on the board. It's how we grow. It's how you grow. Everybody. She's still out. Everybody gets their stories around and how everybody gets better and better every day, folks. Also, let's talk about the people that pay the bills around here. That is Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, Clifton Park. Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, Clifton Park, East Greenbush. Oh, and by the way, starting here next week, it'll also be our newest sponsor, Budget Blinds of Lake George. So if you're up here in the Capital Region, you know Lake George. It's an absolutely beautiful place to be up there during the spring and summertime and when leaf peeper season starts. So we're going to be supporting those folks up at Budget Blinds of Lake George. And again, folks, that is North America's largest custom window treatment company. They're handling everything from blinds, shades, shutters, drapery. And if you reach out to them before the end of July here, it's 25% off of all motorized shades. And if you tell them you're there to belly up to the bar, folks, they're going to give you an additional 5% off your entire order. So make sure you're reaching out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush, Hudson, Coxsackie, Schoharie, Delmar, Clifton Park, and Lake George. All right, Cliff, it's all done. All that stuff's done.
Go. Hey, you got to pay those bills. I get it.
They ain't going to pay themselves.
That's right.
You know what they never told us while we were in the Marine Corps? They probably heard somebody say, hey, if they wanted you to have a family that had issued you one, you probably heard that one. You know what? I never heard them say if they wanted you to have bills they'd have issued you one.
Yeah, that wasn't a thing. Those were still coming.
Yeah, they had no problem with that. So real quick here, folks. So let's get into this. Cliff, we worked so hard to make sure this up. And for the longest.com in the world, folks, if you'd like to find it, there's cliffs.com. It's executionunderpressurespeaker.com. EUPS. You could have just said EUPS, you know that?
I tried.
Oh, you couldn't get that one? Please tell me who EUPS already is. Do you know?
It's owned by somebody, but there's nothing there.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that it was like some weird site where you're going to be like, yeah, dude, you don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Like,
Wow, I got a virus now. That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah. So, all right, brother. So tell us all a little bit about you. Give us a little background on you.
So 60,000 foot view. I grew up in central Illinois and needed to get out of there as quick as I could. So I joined the Marine Corps. Story
What
is
year,
old as
what year
time,
did you
right?
join? What year did you join?
1992.
Oh, wow. You're senior to me. I'm a boot to you. I'm
Yeah.
94. Listen, I'm a
Ah,
boot. I'm a boot,
there it
the boot
is.
gunny.
There it is. Yeah, I jumped in and I was on the east side of the Mississippi, but because our closest MEP station was St. Louis, I went to San Diego.
Oh, really? I've never, dude, I spent 12 years recruiting. I've never heard somebody say that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's like from probably the Champaign, Urbana, which is where the University of Illinois is, area kind of south. They all go to the St. Louis MEPS, and everybody else north of that goes to Chicago. So they go to Paradise Island, and the rest of us go to San Diego. So went there, went to my MOS school in Aberdeen, Maryland.
I know it
So
well.
spent some time there. Spent some time in the Inner Harbor as a young 18-year-old, 19-year-old, hammerjacks and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are some stories that for another time. But and I spent my first 3 years at Camp Lejeune. Participated in Operation Uphold Democracy, Restore Democracy in '94, and then when I got back, I volunteered and went Marine Security Guard.
All right.
And so spent first 15 months at the embassy in Bangkok, Thailand, and then spent a year at the consulate in Rio de Janeiro, which is where I met my beautiful wife. We've been married for over 27 and a half years now. And
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And was in the below zone to pick up staff by 1 month and got out and moved to Dallas, Texas. So
why Texas of all places? Is your wife from Texas?
No, she's from Rio de Janeiro.
Okay.
So yeah, we moved here because my wife grew up in a really big city, and moving to a town of 700 people just wasn't really an exciting idea for her. And I got an amazing opportunity to go work for Ross Perot. Right. I mean, I still had like 4 or 5 months.
Really? That's cool.
So I went, and that brought us to Dallas. So worked there for a while, but transition, right? And even though you're prepared, you're not prepared. And I spent the first 7 years out of the Marine Corps, I worked for 9 different companies in 9 different industries.
Really? Wow. What do you think was going on there?
So what I didn't realize at the time, but upon reflection, what I realized is that it really came down to I didn't have a mission. I didn't have a purpose. I didn't have the community, the camaraderie. I didn't have, the structure that was in place. When you're in the Marine Corps, you don't really realize it, but you really get ingrained in the structure. You get ingrained in all that community, camaraderie, and you have a mission and you have a purpose and you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and working for a corporation that is revenue driven. There's no purpose. There's somewhat of a mission, but it's not really something you can grab a hold of. Revenue, right? Is that really a mission? And then the structure, you go from, being around the same guys and gals every day, and you're in the barracks and you're doing this and you're doing that and you're everywhere together. And then it's like you go to work with somebody who seems pretty cool, from 9 to 5, and then you get off work and they go their way and you go your way, and you're just, and really that was the thing. The grass was always greener on the other side of the fence, and constantly trying to find something that wasn't there. And when I found it, it's when I got involved in veteran nonprofits and veteran service organizations. And that's what really brought back, I went to work not to work, but I got, I guess you could say, roped in to the VFW. And, they saw me walking in, with a big sign on my head, like, yes, please. And so I was like, I need a post adjutant. Okay, I'll be that. Oh, we need a junior vice commander. Okay. Oh, we need a senior vice commander. And when they said we need a commander, I was like, no, we're done. had enough of this, because at the same time we were running a business. My wife and I started a staffing agency, and then myself, my wife, and a couple other former service members, we started a veteran nonprofit to really shine a light on what was going on. This was like 2011, 2012. So you know what the environment was around then, right? I mean, everybody was coming back. Everybody had problems and everything that was going on, and people were looking for handouts, and we weren't about that. And so we just built an organization to hold a military ball and raise money and give it to other organizations so that they could have a funding source and keep working on their mission. And so all of those things together, that was my purpose. That was what was my driver. And so that's when I, upon reflection, I learned, I was like, oh, well, no wonder I worked at this company for, 6 months, and that company for 9 months, and that company for a year and a half. And that, it's because I didn't have that thing that was my purpose, right? To keep me in line, focused, something that was bigger than myself. And when I got involved in the veterans community, that's exactly what it did.
You had no driver. I get it. No, that makes perfect sense to me. Orchid would like to know when you went to Quantico, probably before she was born, but
yeah, I was in Quantico. When did I get there? Well, for school, I got there in '95. I was there for like 3 months for school, and then I blew out my knee in Rio de Janeiro and had to have it rebuilt. So I spent my last 10 months, which was like, I got there on like Halloween of '97 until I got out in October of '98. I was in Quantico.
Quantico is one of those interesting places. You either love that place or you would rather take a sharp stick in the eye. Like it really has that vibe. Like, I love the fact of, I think Q-Town is a really interesting place, and has an interesting story with like being able to go in camis in there, and then the fact that it's still a civilian town with its own police department. Like, people don't realize, like, it's its own place.
It is. And you know what happens if you get in trouble there? You go in court out in town.
Oh, do you really? You got to go to court in the little town there?
It's William County. I'm just saying, I know a guy that had experienced that. So,
I mean, that's just wild to me. Orchid, listen, 05 to 06, I was getting ready to go back out on recruiting duty for the second time. Dorzit and Amtrak. Yeah, that's another thing, is you can Amtrak. That's the other thing I always thought was odd, is because it's a civilian town, Amtrak drops off in the town of Quantico.
Right.
But you can, like, listen, I'm not telling any secrets. You can get off the train and walk right into the town, right into the base, and no one knows it.
Right. Yeah, because there's no gate. I mean, the gate's at the front.
Right, and they don't stop.
Yeah.
They don't stop you and check you like, hey, are you allowed to get off the train here? They're just like, I'm out. See ya. It's a pretty wild. It's a pretty wild one. But that was first place. It's completely sidebar. First place I ever had Korean barbecue. Bulgogi was in Q-Town, because, again, folks, Q-Town is full of Korean, is like a huge Korean population. But the Marine Corps doesn't go to Korea like that. But that town is a huge Korean population.
It just takes one. It just takes one.
Yeah, it's wild. So, so if you were up at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, that's pretty funny, man. Like, I grew up, like I said, right down the road. I'm from Dundalk.
Oh, okay.
Like right down the road from there. So that's pretty interesting. So you're getting involved. You're realizing that, hey, I need a purpose, and you're finding all these other veterans and all these other veteran situations where you can be more involved with your own people. And I get that. It also sounds to me, and I want to touch more on this, like that leadership after the military. What were some of the things you realized you were lacking from a leadership standpoint? And I don't mean, the staff sergeant yelling at you and the sergeant yelling at you, but like, what were some of the leadership things that you were missing? Because I know what I started to miss.
This is one of the things and luckily for me, it was kind of my leadership style anyway, just due to the type of units I was in, right? I mean, I wasn't in a grunt unit. I was with 2nd FSSG. So when I was on Camp Lejeune out in French Creek, it was, 7:30 formation, 11:30 is lunch, 1 o'clock back, 4:30 is formation. We're done for the day. Have a great one. We're out. Let's go walk around the catwalk and drink beer. So my leadership style, just due to the type of unit I was in, was not a, hey, I told you and go, right? It was more of, let's collaborate a little bit. The one thing I learned is that the general military, and when I say this, I'll preface it, not Air Force probably, but a military leadership style is very much, these are the orders, you don't question it, you go do it, get it done.
Right. Be done with this.
That does not work in the civilian world because they want to know why and how's come and how do I and da, 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 right? And so that's one of the things I learned very early on was that, okay, I've kind of already got that, but the way you're going to get this to work is you need to have buy-in. And so instead of just sitting up there and barking orders, you have a conversation and say, this is what we need to do. This is the way I see it. Tell me if you see holes in it or if you see another way, or what are your thoughts, right? You get your team together and you kind of collaborate a little bit. And when you do that, when people have buy-in, even if you don't accept their idea, right? You say, okay, well, I think the best way is probably the way that I just came up with. I really appreciate, your thoughts and your process and your ideas. That resonates because you've at least listened to them. And that's what it takes from, I guess, not to say this in a bad way, the civilian side. And it's probably a better way to lead now, knowing that having been in some of those situations where it's like, go, you don't have time to say, well, what if I did this, Gunny, right? Because there's rounds coming down range or something like that. And it's like, right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what we're doing because we ain't got time to discuss it. That's not the modus operandi there in the civilian world, right? It's like, well, yes, we have a deadline, but it's not like it's in the next 30 seconds or we're all going to die. So it's a little different, and being able to understand that and accept it and use that as a tool is very, very important.
See, for me, it's interesting because for me, I felt like civilian leadership didn't have the compassion that we had in the Marine Corps in leadership. And what I mean by that is, people can say anything, this guy was an ass and that, but at the end of the day, we all at some point ate the same dirt. We all at some point went through something of as my kids would say today, you had a trauma bond, you had a trauma experience. Well, yes, we did. Whatever it was, you little weenies. But we had that, like we all went through boot camp at some point. We all, went through an MOS school at some point. We knew similar people and it kind of connected you, even if you were the, brand new PFC Lance Corporal into a unit, talking to, the 17-year gunny who was just biding his time for retirement. You still went through the same similar experiences. So we had a compassion towards each other in our experiences, where when I got out in the civilian world, it was like, thank you for your service. I appreciate that.
The most awkward question to answer, isn't it?
I fucking hate it. I've talked about it 100 times on here, and I've had other service guys be like, why do you feel that way? I'm like, listen, I don't know how to answer you. Thank you for your service. I know you're saying it because you mean it. But you also are saying it because you think it's the new, when I sneeze, saying God bless you. Some people, and listen, I've met people that are honestly God's honest truth. They're like, hey, I really appreciate your service. Dad was a Marine, uncle was a Marine, cousins, all these different things. And I really see that. And I appreciate when they say that. But then you get these other, they just don't know how to respond to you, and they don't know what to say. And I always feel like it's a guilt. Like the recruiter called your house and was like, hey, what's your plans for after high school? F you, dude. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm too smart for that. And then now I'm standing in front of you and you're like, I don't know how to respond to this guy.
Right.
I don't know what your feelings are. And Orchid's over here with the big yes, but she was a Marine. She was in the Marine Corps also. So
I'll tell you this. I got a buddy. He was blown up. He was in Fallujah and lost left leg below the knee and stuff like that. And so when people ask or say to him, thank you for your service, he looks at him and he says, well, you're worth it.
Best response I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Best response I've ever heard.
And for me, when somebody says it, I just turn into a Chick-fil-A employee and I say, it was my pleasure.
Right. So I'm kind of the same way. I'm like, hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Like, I don't know how to respond to it. And it's not like I don't appreciate it, but I don't know if you're saying it because you're like the one people that are like, dude, like I had a guy the other day, he was like, man, somebody said it to him and guy walked right up and, man, I really appreciate what you did. And I could see the sincerity. But then there's other people when I'm like, oh yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, and they're like, thank you for your service. And I feel like I just went, Achoo.
Right.
God bless you.
Well, I'll for me, I guess having worked in the veteran service industry for 10 years, in the past, I got really used to it. But at first it really bothered me because I had been out for 10 years before I started that and never heard it once. And then I start working in VSOs and we're around all that stuff and it's said all the time. It kind of came chic, to say it after like 2010 or 11. But for me, I didn't join the service for thanks, right? I mean, I was an 18-year-old kid trying to be a part of something greater myself, and some guys and gals went to college and some of us went into the military, and we don't look me personally, and I'm sure there's a lot that feel like that. It was not, or I don't feel special for having served, because to me, it was my job. It was my job. And but I've had to learn to tweak that a little bit because it is something that, only 1% of us do.
Right.
Everybody goes to college, right?
Right.
Well, thank you for going to college. Well, what's that mean? Well, so for me, it's kind of that way. You're thanking me for doing just a job, right? I could have been an HVAC installer. I could have been an electrician. Right. I could have been a welder with my dad, right? And so you're going to thank me for that? No, it was my job. But I get the point and I get the sentiment. Right. It was like, for the longest time, I used, like I said, I guarded embassies. It's not an easy job to do. And the school for MSG school has a 75% failure rate. So it's there at any given time. I think when I was in, there was 175,000 Marines in the Marine Corps at any given time, and there was only 1,700 MSGs. So, of course, we're the top 10% of the Marine Corps, right? Of course, everybody has that little.
Every MOS says that shit. You know how many people are in my MOS?
Right. So, as I did that, I've met 3 presidents doing it. I've shaken the hands of 3 presidents because of that job. I did 2 presidential security details. I met Secretary of State security detail. And that was just not a big deal to me because that was just my job. But then I get out and I'm working in places and I'm talking with CEOs. And at one point I was a management consultant and I'm working with guys who have, been in those kind of rooms and have got that kind of experience. And they're like, you really need to share that. And I'm like, but it was just my job. And they're like, right. For you, that was your job. For the CEO of this company over here, that's a big effing deal that you put yourself in a position to be there to do that. You need to find a way. I get that you're humble and I appreciate it. He said also, as a young guy in my late 20s and my early 30s, and I'm working in this industry, and it's like, how you doing, sir? And right? Because that's just kind of the way it was. I grew up that way. I was taught that. Did you, sir, ma'am, He said at one point on this one job, there was 5 of us that we're all in different branches of service, and we all did it. And he's sitting there at dinner, and this guy's probably in his late 60s. So he's been doing this type of work for a long time, and he was very high up in the company. And he goes, guys, I want to tell you something. You need to stop saying sir to me or to anybody else. You guys, we're bringing you in as subject matter experts in in management consulting. And when you say sir, you automatically put yourself below them. So when you walk, just from a hierarchical standpoint, that yes, you're being polite and everybody gets it, but in a subconscious type of thing, you're saying sir to them, just like you did to officers. Right? You didn't say sir to Gunny. You didn't say sir to staff sergeant. As a sergeant, you said staff sergeant. You called them by their rank, right, or their name. Right. And so the other sergeants or corporals that you're with, you call them by first names, generally, or by last name. So now when I'm in this corporate environment and I look at this guy who's a CEO, do I want to be perceived on the same plane as him because I'm giving him advice, or do I want to seem below him? If I say sir, I am now subservient, I guess is the right way, not the right way to say it, but
I know what you're saying, but you've notched yourself down.
Jim, right? If I say, if I get on your show and I say, hey, sir, how are you today? Or if I say, hey, Sean, what's going on, man? Right? There's a different confidence level. There's a different eye to eye versus not. Anyway, way off on a tangent, but that was just one of the things that he had shared to us. And I took it to heart. And I've been sitting, raising money and doing the stuff I did with veteran service organizations. I've sat across from billionaires in their office, and it's like, hey, Carl, how you doing? We need some money. You come across different from a
That's interesting because I hear it all the time from people. They're like, are you from the South? And I'm like, well, kind of. I'm from Maryland. And I grew up the same way with, Mr. and Miss and all that. And I'm very clear about that. But I guess I never felt like it was putting me on a different level than anyone else. That's interesting. Orchid's over here checking your site out. And look, folks, for those of you that are joining us right now, if you got questions for Cliff, go ahead and drop it in the comments here. He'll be happy to answer anything you have, especially if you're a prior service, or maybe if you're thinking about hiring a service member and you have questions about things of that nature. Or if you want to see what he's got going on, you can look up executionunderpressurespeaker.com. He'll let you know what he's got going on there. So go ahead and drop your comments and questions and give that like, share, and follow. So, that brings up a good point. I want to talk about that a little bit. I know what my experiences were when I first got out. I have a bachelor's degree in human resource management. 12 of my 20 years was a career recruiter. You talk about small within the Marine Corps. I mean, physically, most recruiting commands had 3 to 5 of us.
Right.
That was it. If you were lucky, you had 3 to 5 career recruiters. And everybody was a gunny or above, like the most junior guy coming out of recruiting school, career recruiter school, might have been a staff sergeant, and he was only going to be a staff sergeant for about 6 hours before he was the gunny. So it's interesting. I'm curious of your experiences, though. I know you said you bounced some of these roles, but you were getting roles. People were offering you positions. Oh, wait a sec. Before I get into this, Orca says, because I do know this, she was an instructor staff at MSG, and she loved it. What was your favorite thing about embassy duty, other than meeting your wife? Because I'm going to go ahead and save you there.
The favorite thing about embassy duty was the community. And what I mean is when we were in Thailand or even in Rio, the embassy community is generally a very tight-knit community, right? And depending on where you're at, I mean, if you're in Paris, France, not nearly as much as if you are in,
I've heard that.
Because there's so much to do, but you go to some of the smaller posts, like when we were in Rio, we had a pretty tight community. In Bangkok, we did too. Of course, the Marine House back then, they still had bars. And so once a month we held a party at the Marine House. We had a huge bar, and there would be people from the American Embassy, the Australian Embassy, the British Embassy, allies. They would come, and it'd just be a good time. We'd hang out, and so for me, the job was the job, but getting to know some of the people there were organizations within the U.S. government that I had no idea existed. We called them the alphabet people because you had the CIA, the DEA, the ATF, the FBI. and we had a pretty big Secret Service contingent in Thailand because it was a huge U.S. dollar counterfeiting circuit.
Oh, really?
In Southeast Asia, yeah.
I never even heard that. I didn't know that was a thing.
So that was my favorite, was just getting to know all the people and learn about stuff we didn't know about. So great question. Yeah, thank you.
I had a Master Guns at work for Master Guns Peoples who knew. Your eyes got big. Did you know Peoples?
That name sounds very familiar. So
yeah, he was avionics, but Master Guns Peoples, he did embassy duty. I want to say he did it twice. Like he did it once as a regular, and then did it
and then as a staff NCO.
As a staff NCO. I've always said that was the one thing I wish I'd have done in my career was I should have done, wish I would have done embassy duty. I could never say I had any regrets in my career, but that was the one where I was like, I missed out on an opportunity. But he was the one that he was in El Salvador. His story was about El Salvador, and he was there when it was like, it was not a good place to be
Like the
on.
Wild West. There was a shooting. Two or three Marines were killed at a bar one night.
So his whole story was, he's like, when he landed there, he was a watch stander, and his whole story was he landed. They met him, the Marines from the Marine House met him there at the gate and threw him a flak jacket, a helmet, and two guys grabbed his bags, and they were loaded for bear.
Yeah, because it was no joke back then.
Yeah, headed right to the SUVs and started going down the road. And he's like, that was a little freaky to start with. But the real thing that in his story that was kind of like, oh shit, he's like, we were going down the road and I felt the SUV shift and like come back in. And he's like, I looked back and there was just a body laying in the road, just a body.
Yeah, it was a Wild West back then. Yeah,
that's what he said. He said it was wild. I mean, just a wild place. Is it that bad? Is it bad that I loved Hogan's Alley most? Got to shoot most people. Oh, because that's the whole. If you don't know what that is, it's a shoot house, folks. Hogan's Alley. It's not an actual alley where you're shooting at people, but that's what that is. So the next question then for me, brother, is back to what I was saying though, is how about that, that transition? Because like I said, I had a lot of issues when I first got out where people, they didn't understand our skill sets and what we brought to the table because it didn't match their nomenclature in their job. Like telling somebody I was a gunnery sergeant with a bachelor's degree in human resource management, 12 years of recruiting, they couldn't grasp that in a staffing world. That didn't make sense to them. How about yourself?
Yeah, I learned pretty quickly when I started at working for Ross Perot and at Perot Systems is that a lot of people, this was in I got there in 98, and I learned pretty quick that at that point in time, most people did not value veterans in their workforce. What they saw veterans as was yes men. That you could take orders, but they didn't really have the understanding that, okay, we can build an op plan. We build plan A and plan B, and we hit the ground. The enemy has a say, and now we're on to just wing it and try to get out of here with our asses intact, and everybody's still with us, right? They don't understand that most of the things we do in the military takes some general, some G2, right? It has to take some intelligence to figure out, and that we can overcome and adapt. And a lot of corporations don't see that. They just say, well, if I tell you to do something, you'll go do it. Well, we're not effing robots. But that was the mentality pre 9/11. Right now, you go to 2010, 12. People are starting to understand there's some value to having these guys and gals in our workforce. And for me, the one thing, you talked about the transition, and I talked about it earlier. It wasn't easy for me. But as I started filming this podcast that I do, the Tailgate Chat, and I sit on my tailgate on my pickup truck with my iPhone, and I just talk. And things came to me. And one of the things that I've wrote about, I have a Substack, I write every once in a while, and it was about transition. And the thing that really struck me the most is that the times in my life when my purpose was tied to my title, my transition was harder.
What do you mean?
So we get out of the Marine Corps. I'm a Marine. We hang up our uniform. It's almost like we hang our identity up in the closet because now I'm not a Marine. I mean, once a Marine, always a Marine, right? But
right, but I get it. No, I get that.
So I'm not a Marine anymore. And now what do I do? You're like Ricky Bobby. You're kind of floating around. You don't really know what to do with your hands. You're just kind of lost. And when I got out, I thought that I was good, but that's why I worked for 9 different companies in 7 years, is because I was lost. I didn't know what I was missing. I didn't know what it was. I didn't discover this till much later, by the way. But then once I got involved in the veteran community, I had a job working for a sales and marketing company, and I was doing all this veteran stuff on the side. I mean, I was with the senior vice commander for the VFW. We had the North Texas Military Association that we founded. I was on the the Frisco Veterans Advisory Committee board. And, there was like 2 or 3 other things. And that's where my purpose lied. And I had this job. Well, when I lost the job, it didn't bother me. I was like, all right, I'll find another job. Right. And it was a job. That wasn't my purpose. But now when I was the executive director of a veterans nonprofit that taught veterans how to become entrepreneurs, and we helped 50 plus veterans start and launch businesses in 2018, when that closed down due to funding issues, brother, I went
devastating.
Devastating. It took all I could do to get out of bed. I wasn't a good husband. I wasn't a good father. I had 2 young kids. And I was depressed and I was in the tank. And looking back on it, I go, you know what? When I tied my identity and who I was to my job, that's when it hit me the worst. But when I had something else on the side that held my purpose, that held my identity, and then I had a job over here, if that job went away, okay, it didn't bury me, if that makes sense. Now I was in a hole for probably about 5 years. It was a long road because I went from just being completely depressed, blaming everybody under the sun for what happened. And it took a while. And then we remodeled the house and we did that, and it kept me occupied, but it didn't take me out of it because I was still angry, right? I was angry at people because this happened and that happened. And then when I realized, and I finally one day, probably 4 years into it, I was like, I need to take a little personal accountability. I'm the one who jacked this show up, because if I would have been on my feet and I would have moved or pivoted, we would have saved the organization, but I didn't, because I was too stuck in my ways on doing it a certain way. So, and there's a whole episode that talks about this on my podcast, that once I learned to A, take accountability, B, forgive people for stuff that I'm carrying. They have no idea. They just did what they did, and they're moving on. And I'm mad as hell at them. And if I walked up to one guy and he was like, "Hey man, how you doing, brother?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm mad as F at you." But I didn't say anything. I was just like, "Oh, you know what? He doesn't even know.
He doesn't even know."
And so that's just all on me. I'm just holding myself down. I'm just holding myself back. So that's where a lot of this stuff that I talk about, execution under pressure, that's where this all derives from, is that I understand that I needed to take accountability for my actions. I needed to accept responsibility for the things that had happened. It's not anybody else's fault. That's one thing our society loves to do, is blame everybody and their brother and try to keep ourselves clean, so to speak. So I did that. And as I did those things, I felt weight coming off my shoulders. And as I understood, this whole transition thing, and then if I have something that has my purpose and that is driving me, it's just that's where it's going, and that's where everything is leading, and that's where I understand now having a purpose, because I wholeheartedly believe each one of us have a God-given purpose on this planet.
Absolutely.
We already won. We were born, right? When your mom and dad got together, there was 40 million of you racing toward that egg, and one made it. That's you, and you're a winner. And so don't think down upon yourself. And one thing I always try to do is, when I have these talks with people, is I'm not giving you the answers. I'm not giving you, the golden egg. You need to do that on your own. I'm going to give you a hand up, but not a hand out. And I'm going to show you some things that worked for me. And that's what I do with this podcast. It's just me talking about what I've gone through and what I've kind of figured out for me. If it works for you, outstanding. If it doesn't, well, let's get together and let's figure it out for you. And by the way, I have started writing a book. It's I found out very, very early that writing a book is not as easy as everybody likes to think. Not. And within the first 37 pages, I realized I was talking in a circle, and I was like, "Oh crap! Well, I'm going to focus on the podcast for now. I'll come back to the book, but it's in the plan."
I'll introduce you to Kathy Nash. She'll help you write a book. She was a guest we had, and she keeps telling me to finish my book. and she rewrote the first chapter of my book, and I was like, God, I don't know if I wrote that or she's just amazing like that. I was like, good Lord. But it's funny you bring up the whole identity thing. I want to go back to that for a second.
Yeah.
I've talked to other people about that, and I'm always, and not trying to go to the Debbie Downer side to this, but I always say that that's why so many people today, they go and see the head shrinker, go see the counselor, go see all these people because they're afraid that if they lose their identity of being diagnosed with something, that they won't be who they are anymore. And just like when you talk about, hey, leaving the Marine Corps and hanging the uniform up, it's kind of, sometimes it's like hanging our identity up.
Right.
And now who am I? And I think it's kind of the same idea. Orchid's ready to help you write the book and everything. She's like,
Yeah, I see that.
I'm ready to help you write the book. She's amazing. But I mean, it's interesting that you say that. But so that some of this then, that leaders, were there any other leaders that kind of helped you when with that epiphany? Anybody you were listening to, anybody you got involved with, or it just was you woke up one day and it was that kick in the ass?
No, it was through some reflection, really. I mean, it was just me trying to figure out what's going on. I had it. I'm not ashamed to say it. Had a therapist. I don't see him anymore because he told me, dude, you don't need to come back here anymore.
You don't hear those stories often. Wow.
No. Well, the thing was, which was really cool, is I'm very picky on who I see medical wise. And I found this guy, amazing dude. He played in the NFL, and
Nice.
he ended up jacking up his hand. And so he had to, couldn't play football anymore. So he joined the Marines. And he was a Marine. But very quickly after, he wasn't in very long before that hand injury kind of stopped everything he was doing in the Marine Corps. But he'd been through boot camp. He knew who, I had conversations with him that, you're not going to have with somebody that doesn't have that baseline of experience and understanding. But he was a therapist on top of it. So it was great. And I was able to get some stuff off this thing right here and out of my pack and get rid of. That's when I started coming up and realizing, you know what, I'm blaming people for stuff that I need to understand, that it's really me. And I mean, obviously I've already known about, taking personal accountability, but when I looked at it through a different lens, and I was like, oh yeah. And then, the other thing that helps is that right there.
The Bible's a pretty amazing book. It's got all the answers in it. You just got to go read it.
All the answers. I'm a part of a mastermind group, and we talk a lot about that. And it's like, this is the you've got the manual for life.
Right.
It's right there. And you know what? They even put it on, in different versions, so you don't have to read it like you're, sitting in, 15th century England.
No, the old King James version. Orchid said she's following you now.
I see that. Thank you very much.
But and it's interesting. I talk about that often. Like, and listen, folks, if you really are looking, you say, it's all boring stuff. Go read the Old Testament. I've read a lot of books in my life, listened to a lot of audiobooks. To this day, none of them, not a one, is as violent as the Old Testament. Nothing. If you don't believe me, go find out about the guy who punched I don't know if he was a pharaoh, I don't remember what he was, but punched this guy in the chest and got his arm stuck in the guy's chest. Is in the Bible, just in case if you were wondering. Like those movies you watch where the guy like punches a guy and gets stuck there. Yeah, they're just taking that out of the Bible if you didn't know that. So if you want, like, those are the things that I explain to people and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, go read it. Well, listen, folks, real quick, so we can keep going on here. Let's go ahead and have our New Scotland's last call. The bottle that starts the conversation. You know what's interesting? Some of the best conversations don't start with a microphone. Maybe they do, folks. Just so you know, maybe they do start with a microphone. And I don't know why my focus keeps falling off of my phone. That's why you keep hearing this dinging. Let's try this again. You know what's interesting? Some of the best conversations don't start with a microphone. They start with a great bottle on the table. This episode is proudly brought to you by New Scotland Spirits, handcrafted small batch right here in upstate New York. New Scotland Spirits is made for people who appreciate quality over quantity. Every bottle starts with locally sourced grain, ends with a whiskey that's bold, smooth, and meant to be shared. So whether you're sitting around a backyard fire, relaxing on the porch, or catching up with friends after a long week, make the pour as memorable as the conversation, because great stories deserve great whiskey. Visit NewScotlandSpirits.com and discover your next favorite bottle. New Scotland Spirits, crafted for conversations worth remembering. And hopefully this is one of those.
That sounds awesome. I saw you with the glass, and I was like, "Dang it!
Well,
I didn't bring mine."
That's it, New Scotland.
Dude, I'm gonna have to give that a shot.
It's pretty impressive stuff. And the guy who, the owner, his name's Jesse. He was on the show before he ever bottled his first bottle.
Oh,
wow. He was I can't remember if he was 82nd or 101st Army. He was an O, so I harassed him over that fact. But he was a JAG. So it's like it's like their units are the weirdest things to me. Like, hey, I'm in the 101st and I'm a JAG and I'm going to jump out of planes. Why? Why?
Might be a judge down there.
Yeah, like there's like their units are just the wackiest things. Like, hey, I'm in Ranger Battalion as a cook, so I'll wear the beret. Like, why? Like that would be like me wearing the French Fortigé or something like that. Never being in that unit or having any business.
I'm in the barracks next door to 2-2, and so I'm gonna wear it.
Yeah, so I write that now, right? Like, no,
by proximity.
No. And I'll tell you, even after my first 4 years, I don't think I ever saw anyone after I left Lejeune wear that thing.
No,
never.
Well, after they leave the unit, they have to take it off.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
It's not a personal award; it's a unit award. So when you show up and you check in as a private, they give it to you. You put it on. When you check out, you have to give it back.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I always thought it was like once you were in that unit, you rated it the rest of the time that you were in.
I thought that as well until I met a guy, and he was like, because on Lejeune, I seen them running around in their Charlies or their Blues or whatever, and I met a guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I was in it," and he goes, "Yeah, we had to give it back. We can't." They may be able to keep it, but they're not authorized to wear it after they get orders to a new unit.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. See that learning is occurring all over the place. Listen. You'll hear. I get the biggest. You'll appreciate this probably. Whenever somebody spends like any time with me, I say a lot of isms. I have a lot of isms from my time. You had 6 years worth of isms. I got 20 years worth of isms. Right. I say things all the time, and people are like, "What did you say?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." 2-2 work it. 2-2 is they rate. I think it's from the First World War. Like they rate.
It's from World War I. Yeah.
Yeah, they rate the French Fortigé. So it's like it's almost like a cord, like a gold cord that they wear.
And it doesn't look good in blue.
Is it green?
It's green.
Is it green? Okay, I remember what color it was. Yeah, it's like one of those weird only units that get to do those things, and you're like, well, why do they get to do it? It's like when I was in 310 India Battery, like it was all about 7 for 1, and if you weren't in that unit or you weren't a real history buff with the Battle of Saipan, you have no idea what 7 for 1 is.
Right. When were you in 310? Were you down on K Street?
N Street.
In Street.
Yep, N Street. I was in 310, 94 to 98.
So my best friend growing up was in Alpha 110.
Okay.
And I hung out down there in his barracks all the time because those guys were the gun rocks were much crazier than my guys.
So 110 was on the other side of the road. They had all the barracks that they had all the barracks that faced towards all the headquarters units. Our barracks was if you came to the end of N Street, right where River Road met, you had 310 headquarters battery right there, and then there was a big parking lot. I'll take it back. There was a barracks next to it, and then a big parking lot. Our barracks was that back parking lot because when I first checked in, they had us in 1/8. And listen, folks, I know if this doesn't make any sense to anyone, suck it up, Buttercup. We're
not doing math.
But we were in this. Listen, if you hear this conversation and you look at somebody and they say they were in the Marine Corps and they don't know what we're saying, they were never in the Marine Corps because none of this shit makes any sense to them. But I was they had us in 1-8. I think it was 1-8's barracks. Or no, I take it back. I lied to you. We were in tanks, which doesn't exist anymore. If you didn't know that, Marine Corps doesn't have tanks anymore. But we were in tanks barracks, and then they moved us over. And this is such a Marine Corps thing. The barracks that they moved us into, our battalion CO, I don't remember the guy's name, came out and he was like, "Listen, we're gonna repaint this building for all the Marines inside." And he was in coveralls, and he goes, "If you don't outrank me, you better go get a paintbrush."
Right.
And he had every staff NCO, lieutenant, first sergeant, didn't matter who it was. And some of these first sergeants were madder than a bag of hornets.
Yeah.
I
did this when I was a PFC. I don't need to do it again.
Yep. We had to paint our own barracks in kills because they were taking so long to get the barracks done so we could move in there.
Yeah.
So we painted all the rooms in kills so we could finally move back into it because
white.
Yeah, and everybody else was, because that unit was coming back. And then when I floated 96 into 97, we floated with BLT 1-8. That's where I was remembering that, which was America's Battalion. Every unit, the Marine Corps, all of them got named. Like 1-8 was America's Battalion. 310 was 7 for 1, which is the Battle of Saipan, which if you don't know what that is, folks, you want to talk about it. Do you know about the Battle of Saipan?
Yes.
Like that's a crazy ass shit. Like artillery units laying flat elevation and shooting howitzer rounds at people, not like in the air and exploding them, like at people. Like that shit's crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
What's Orchid saying? Something incredible happened to me last month. I met the oldest still living Marine, who is the last person still alive to have the Morse code MOS. Oh wow, that's pretty interesting. Wonder where the hell did you meet him at? That's pretty interesting. So back to you, though, Cliff. I'm sorry. I got off on a tangent there. So executionunderpressurespeaker.com. Folks, go check out what Cliff's got going on. You can also find him on LinkedIn. I'm taking a look at your website. Who's this ruggedly handsome, smooth-faced gentleman on here?
Yeah, that's a younger version of me. That's when I was at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility, the Star in Frisco, and was speaking before a pretty large crowd before we did a fundraiser. Is that the one in my cowboy hat?
Yeah, look at you with the cowboy hat and everything. You know, and I'm looking through this. So what can people kind of expect if they reach out to you and learning about AUF and your method there, action under fire? What's some of the things they can expect if they reached out to you?
You know, so if it's an individual, reach out and we'll just have a conversation to understand. Because one thing that I've learned is we all at some point, one point or another in our lives, are going to run into friction. And it's what really, you have people that are super successful and people are like, well, I'm never going to be that. I can't do that. Those people who are super successful aren't talented. What they've done is they've created consistency, and they've realized that there's a friction in front of them, and they execute. And so what I did is I developed the AUF method, which is action under friction. And when you break it down into its 3 pillars, you have to acknowledge the friction that's in front of you. You have to understand where it's coming from, and then you have to move forward one incremental step at a time, one aligned step at a time. And so what I did, because I'll tell you, I'll be quick. When I was decided to do this podcast, I was putting all these barriers in front of me. I need to understand how to edit. Oh, I need to understand how to create a LinkedIn account or a YouTube account. Oh, I need to understand how to film it in the right way. Oh, I need a microphone, and I need this and I need that. And what I realized was, like, I need to just stop and just do it. And so I did. And it was horrible. You go back and watch the first episode. I filmed it for like 40 minutes, and there's like 8.5 minutes of content. And I was not happy with it. And I sat there and then I put the barriers in front of me again. And I was editing and editing and editing. And finally, I just said, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going to get better. I'm going to understand this as I go. So I took one aligned step and I finished it and I posted it. And then I went back at it again. And the next one was better. By the third one, they were 40. It was for the third one. And it was 40 minutes long. And then just understanding that I need to move, and that I have to make a committed effort to doing it. And how do I do that? Because when I first start something, and a lot of people may understand this, you have motivation. You have this idea, right? It's a great idea. Oh, I'm motivated to do it. I'm going to go. And then after time, the motivation, because motivation is an emotion. It's driven from emotion. And what happens when you hate somebody? You don't always hate them. That you get angry, you come back down. You get happy, you come back. Right? It's emotions. So motivation is going to get you fired up. It's going to get your ass off the couch, and you're going to go after it. But whether it's a day, a week, a month, a year, that motivation is going to fade. And now you're going to be starting to hear what I call the three fears: the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, and the fear of success. Those are the ones that I dealt with. And so what I understand is that if I created consistency by moving forward, and I create systems and write them down, just SOPs, just like every job in the Marine Corps or in the military has an SOP. And so the next guy behind you or the next gal behind you understands what the job is, and they can just pick up the binder and they can keep going. And the transition within the military unit is seamless. Well, I've created those for myself. And what I found is that I don't need the motivation to get up in the morning and to write or to get ready to film the episode or to talk to or this, that, or the other, because I have a system in place for everything. And the systems are growing on a regular basis. I started creating another one today for LinkedIn because I found out LinkedIn has some screwy new algorithm that I didn't know about. And that's why my posts aren't going anywhere. So creating all this stuff. So that is the way to keep moving forward. And the moving forward creates, it creates consistency. The consistency will create momentum, and the momentum is in what creates the success. You can't have success if you don't have momentum going towards something. So it all lines up. So if somebody wants to reach out to me, we'll work through that. We'll talk through that. If an event planner wants me to come and give this presentation in front of a group that they are trying to, help in one way or another, I'd love to talk to them about what their audience is looking for and have those conversations.
Now, how about any upcoming events? If anything coming up where if somebody was like, hey, I want to go see Cliff, he's speaking at, I don't know, the Underwater Basket Weavers Conference.
Right. Well, that one is coming up in 28. But in the meantime, I actually did. Yes. So I did actually recently just get booked for an event. It's called the NAVPA. And what that is the National Association of Veteran Program Administrators. So you've been to college and you know that when you go there as a veteran, they have somebody set aside that'll help evaluate your service record to make sure we can give you these college credits. And then they're the ones that file with the GI Bill, and they're working with the government and they're putting in all the stuff to do. Well, there's an association of those folks, and they're having an event here in Dallas in October. And I just got booked to go give a workshop on this very speech to those people about how they are the one that is the catalyst between a veteran who has no idea what they're doing when it comes to school and being able to be successful at it. So that's the big one that's coming up. And I am looking at doing some other things. So as far as coaching and stuff like that, it's still very early, but if people are following me, they'll get the info as soon as it comes out, as I get stuff developed. And there's going to be a book, and I do writings on Substack, and that's all linked through my LinkedIn and my Instagram, my TikTok. I have them all. I have the TikToks, the Instagrams, the book faces.
Book faces. Oh yes. Yeah. I've got all that. Well, listen, brother, we always appreciate having other Marines on. We accept the other vets, but Marines we're better. Just a thing.
Yeah, we get it. Those who know.
As always, folks, if you're finding me through Cliff or Cliff through me, make sure you give this like, share, follow. You can find us on all those major social media areas. Typically, we have a show every week. I will tell you, won't be doing one next week. I will be in Dallas, so we're gonna skip next week, but we will be back on the 12th. We have I'm gonna jack how jack names up. Javoy Palmer coming on the 12th. Javoy is from the streets of Jamaica to building a business that solves real problems in a digital world flooded with forgettable content. He's emerging as a powerful voice, an entrepreneur and business leader looking for something deeper than viral trends and surface level marketing, which I'm very interested in. Marketing is always awesome. Marketing is always one of my favorite things. I can listen to people talk about that. So, and it's like I enjoy like some of the nerdiest, boringest shit. Sales training, bro. You got me. Let's listen. Let's talk. I want to hear this. I want to hear what you're doing. Marketing, it's riveting. Tell me all about your avatar. Like just the most boring shit in the world. But as we do in every episode, brother, don't log off on me afterwards. We got to talk for just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
The guest always gets the final word. So what's our final word for tonight?
The final word for tonight is it's clarity. Find your clarity.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.